And coming in at number 1 on the list of jobs that I don't look forward to doing is harvesting chickens. And while this isn't a job that I particularly enjoy, I do enjoy the outcome, which is a good supply of chicken that I know where it came from and how it was raised. And because of the way things are, I'm not going to be able to show you every single step along the way, but I wanted to at least show you my equipment and kind of what each thing does. So if this is something that you're considering doing, you kind of know what you need to get into it. I think I've got about 35 birds that need to go, and I definitely won't get them all done today, but we'll at least get started. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. I feel like knife sharpening is one of those things where people are really going to feel empowered to tell me that I'm doing it wrong. So I'll make you a deal. I will welcome any and all criticisms on how I sharpen my knives if I cannot cut the chickens. This year I'm trying something a little bit different. You saw there I put some salt in the ice chest before I added the water and the ice. The reason that I'm doing this is because I remember when I was a kid and me and my grandpa would go pheasant hunting, he would always soak them overnight in a saltwater bath like that. And I think that was to kind of tenderize the meat. It's almost like a brine, I guess you could think of it. And also, I think it probably has some antibacterial action. So we're gonna try it this year and see if, it does anything. I don't know, maybe we won't be able to tell any difference at all, but maybe we will. My water got up to 150, so I shut it off. And ideally, we want it to be about 135 to 140. So I don't know if you could see that, it's 144. I'd rather have it too hot because it's a lot easier to cool it down. I can just add some more hose water. But I think we'll go ahead and dispatch the first chicken, and by the time he's ready to go in there, we'll test it again and we should be good. But yeah, I think we're all ready to go. So let's do it. So the first piece of the puzzle here is the restraining cone, which is exactly what it sounds like. You put the bird in there to hold them while you're doing the deed. In the past, I used a cut-off traffic cone. That works fine. You don't have to go drop a bunch of money on one of these. But these are nice. So it looks like he is done. We can go ahead and move him into the hot water bath. And what this is gonna do is loosen all of his feathers up so that when we put him in the plucker, it can actually remove the feathers from him. So we're gonna keep soaking him until a tail feather or a wing feather pulls out real easy. I mean, it should come out with almost no effort. Talking about. Feeding birds is something I learned how to do as a kid from going bird hunting. I used to hunt pheasants and ducks on a fairly regular basis, and when you do that, this is something you got to know how to do. Now granted, all the fancy processing equipment came a lot later, and if you're only cleaning a couple pheasants every weekend, then this isn't really justified. But if you want to raise your own meat on a fairly larger scale, like say for a year's supply where you're butchering 20, 30, maybe more chickens, there's some of this stuff that I feel like you kind of gotta have. And the main thing is the chicken plucker. I have told several people that if you're gonna grow your own chickens for meat, don't even bother doing so unless you're willing to buy a plucker. I built this one myself, but there are ones that you can buy. I think they're around like $400 or $500, so they're not cheap. But when you use it, you're gonna realize what you were spending that money on. The motor upgrade that I did to the plucker a couple weeks ago was definitely time well spent. This is like a whole new machine now. I never had it bogged down on me once. The only issue that I did have is my bottom spinning plate was spinning on the shaft because I didn't have enough spacers in there. That was my fault. When I put it back together, I didn't do it right. Once I got that figured out, this thing ran like a dream, and you know, something I should have done a long time ago. Chicken plucker, however, is useless unless you've got a scalder, and you can spend a lot of money on a dedicated scalding machine, or you can go pick yourself up a turkey fryer and it works just as good. It's just a little bit more of a pain to operate because you really got to babysit that temperature. There is a sweet spot. While scalding, you want to be about 135 to 145. If you really get too much below that, it's not going to work. If you get much over that, then you can start to damage the skin on the birds because it's just too hot. That's why using the turkey fryer is more work. You got to really pay attention to your temperature and keep it within that range. But for the money you save buying something like this as opposed to a dedicated scalder, well, it's probably worth it for some people. And to be clear, I am one of those people. I've been using the turkey fryer here for several years. I think in the future I will probably upgrade and either build a scalder or buy one. But this one does work. It just, you know, you really got to watch it. Beyond that, I've got this little stainless steel table here. I think this was only like $100 on Amazon. It really wasn't that expensive. And then I got a couple of knives from Sam's Club, and that's a pretty low budget butchering setup all in all, I would say. It's the next day now, and I'm not going to be butchering any more chickens today, but I do need to package the ones that I did yesterday. The reason that I'm not going to butcher any more today is because prior to butchering, you need to withhold feed for 24 hours, and the reason that you do this is because it just makes the evisceration a lot cleaner and more sanitary, because their digestive tract is not full of... So because yesterday the birds had been without feed already for 24 hours, I had to feed the ones that didn't get harvested, because if I didn't do that, then they would have gone a full 48 hours, and that's just too long for them to go without feed. So I fed them yesterday, which means I won't be able to start butchering again until tomorrow. I've got some of these shrink wrap poultry bags. These work pretty good. If you do it right, the birds kind of look like a football when you're all done with them. But in order for these to work, you got to get your water up to 190, or you know, a little more, a little less is fine. But it does take a little while for this turkey fryer to get that hot. We're only at 111. This is a great time to go through, sharpen knives. When the water gets a little bit hotter, I can start bagging the birds so that when it does reach that ideal temperature, we can just start dunking them and get through them pretty quick. While you're waiting for the water to heat up is a great time to sharpen knives, clean things, whatever, you know, little nagging jobs that you got to get done. This is a good time to do them. And I did go to town this morning and I got this additional ice chest. I figure I can fit at least 10 birds in here. So between the two of them, I'll probably be able to butcher close to 20 at a time, which is probably about as much as I would like to do. While I'm waiting for the water to heat up, I'm gonna go ahead and bleach this, clean it out, so that tomorrow when I do come to butcher, this thing is ready to go. The ice chest is brand new, so it should be pretty clean, but you can't be too careful with this kind of stuff. Just because we're butchering on the farm doesn't mean it has to be dirty. I try to take cleanliness really seriously when I do this. Not so much for my own safety, but because I'm giving this food to my family and friends. I certainly wouldn't want any of them getting sick. So I'll let the bleach sit in there for a couple minutes to get a good kill on anything that might be living inside, and then we'll make sure that we rinse it out really good before we put anything in there. All right, we're at about 195. That should be about perfect. By far, the hardest part of all of this is getting these chickens in the bags. And that's my fault because I let these get so big. But it seems like even when they're normal size, they're difficult to get in because you gotta hold the bird with one hand and fish the bag on with the other. Now I have heard of people making little racks or like stands to put the birds on while you're putting the bag on, and that is a genius idea. And I never think about doing that until right now. And sometimes you gotta stretch that leg down to get the bag over him. And then once you got him in there, you can push that leg back down. Such. And if you thought the hard part was over, you are mistaken, because now we got to get this tie strap on here, or zip tie. And then the challenge becomes squeezing as much air out by hand that you can and getting this zip tie down as far as you can, so that when you pull it tight, you know, we want most of the work done already, which it mostly is. And then with these bags, the way the air escapes when you shrink it is you just cut yourself a little hole right here, and then we dunk it in the water. And there you have it. Now we got a nice tight little football here. I want to dry that off, but it usually dries up pretty quickly on its own because that water is so hot. And then you gotta find where your hole is, and that's where the label goes. And there you got a perfectly packaged chicken. And I guess I should talk about why I'm putting them in the ice chest in the first place. It'd be a lot easier if you just stuck them in the shrink bags, shrunk them down, and put them right into the freezer. But the reason that you don't do that is because putting them in this ice bath overnight is supposed to help tenderize the meat. And I've done it both ways, and I will say there is a difference when you do it this way as opposed to just freezing them as soon as you're done. Well, I'm thinking this will be my last video about chicken processing, although I've probably got 2 or 3 more days of this. I've showed you guys about all I can show you without getting in trouble, and we probably better keep it that way. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.